And welcome back, everybody, once again to another episode of TJ Talks the News. Today is October 22nd, 2021, and the Department of Justice has added two top prosecutors to the Matt Gaetz investigation, according to sources, at least. And the thing that I find really odd about this story is that the prosecutors they added are experts in child trafficking and public corruption. What I find odd about that is that the Department of Justice didn't already have experts in child trafficking and public corruption, especially the latter. You would think, you know, ensuring that the government is free of corruption would be like their number one job. But apparently not. Apparently not. Apparently we don't have any public corruption experts. That's obviously not true. We have those experts. They just brought these guys in because they're more likely to get a good, you know, they have the expertise. But again, why don't we have the expertise there already? I don't know. Maybe the other experts that we already have are busy doing other things. Who knows? I'm very tired today. It's been a long week. I am being evaluated next week. And I'm only evaluated once every 3 years, which I find hilarious. Basically, I only have to be a good teacher once every 3 years. Once every 3 years. And then the rest of the time, they have no idea what I'm doing. Of course, students can always go and complain, right? But students are usually terrified about doing anything. So, um, but yeah, I'm very, yeah, one thing that I find really interesting, to give you some insight into the world of teaching, at least here in California, I'm not sure if it's the same in other states, is just how I'm able to teach at the college level, right? And I guess the freedom that we're given, not only in terms of there being very little oversight over what we're doing, but just even like freedom to like do what I want to do in the class. It's so very different than what my parents have experienced as high school teachers, where they're subject to a lot more oversight, a lot more control over what they can and can't do in the classroom. And honestly, that's one of the big things keeping me from wanting to teach in the K through 12 system. But at the same time, I see the utter lack of oversight where I'm at as a bit of a problem as well. And it's very different where I am compared to where I used to be, where I went to school. Because when I was teaching there it was a unified program. At least the first year writing program was, meaning that all of these introductory English classes were following a kind of generalized curriculum. Now, the specifics were still decided upon by the teachers, and this is closer to what it would be like in a K through 12 system. And I actually kind of liked that, because that consistency across the board, I think, added a sense of fairness, added also a sense of community among the students and the teachers. It was easier to kind of assess the program overall. Because right now, where I'm at, people are just doing, whatever. We have these kind of these learning outcomes, which I think are about 50 years outdated and also don't make any sense. Anytime somebody mentions mastery of a language, and I know that mastery in the world of education has a specific meaning, so I'm kind of being a bit facetious here, but it just that they would choose that type of rhetoric to describe learning a language, mastery of something. I don't know. It just seems so very 1950s to me. And it's funny how I say that that's 50 years ago, because in my mind, it's still the year 2000. Oh, I'm getting old. Um, so, but I can't teach in the K through 12 system. Isn't that, I don't know. I think they give us this freedom because there's this assumption that you are an expert in your field, you have the expertise, you're clearly motivated to have gone through that much schooling, you got hired, so they put trust in you. But I don't know. I'm trying to think. just given all the stuff, all the training, all of the stuff that my parents have to go through, I imagine it helps create better teachers. But I say that, and then I'm like, well, but my high school teachers were were terrible. Except my mom, that was the best teacher I ever had. Not really, probably not. It was not. It was a fine experience, and I think we both got through it, and maybe both enjoyed it somewhat. I mean, I had fun. I feel like I was probably a jerk to her, though. I was kind of arrogant around that. Maybe I'm still arrogant. Uh, I like to think that I've become a bit more self-reflective in my old age. Growing wise with the years, but gosh, that sounds so terrible. Why would I say so? I don't know. Anyways, I was just very, I don't know, especially with my mom, I think, because I felt very comfortable with her. So I was very pushy in class and liked to get into debates and stuff. How did I start talking about this? But I think it's fascinating that I can teach at the college level, but I can't teach at the K through 12 level. Despite the fact that there's a huge teacher shortage right now. And there's lots of little things like that with not only our education system, but with all kinds of things that you would think like, well, let's just fix that. But it's amazing how hard it is to actually accomplish things. Especially when like 30% of your population is fucking insane. Let's hope they bring Matt Gates down. That guy is he just you know, I was gonna go somewhere and I'm not gonna go there because I don't like commenting on people's appearances. He's an asshole because of his views about the world and the way that he treats his constituents and the harm that he's done to the country. I don't have to stoop to making comments about his weird looking face to, to win the debate here. Elephants have evolved to be tuskless in response to ivory poaching, study finds. Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. I find that hard to believe because it's so fast, right? I mean, ivory poaching hasn't been happening for that long, right? But obviously it has. I would think at least a couple thousand years, probably. Um, but again, that seems really quick to be evolving. I don't know, but maybe with the way that elephants work and how small the herds are. I don't know. I'm not an expert in evolution. The real story there is that we're talking about assholes, just humans in general, fucking assholes going around killing shit and stealing their teeth. I'm gonna steal your teeth, Mr. Elephant. Barbados elects first president replacing UK Queen as head of state. Very cool. I didn't know. I mean, I know that there are still kind of these little. I mean, America has their own, right? We have like Puerto Rico and stuff. Um, I wonder what other kind of territories UK still kind of considers under their rule. I mean, usually they're independent states now. It's just this. It's like an informal. I don't know how to describe the relationship. It's something I think I should know, but I've obviously forgotten. Laundry attorney remains found at Makahachi. Maya Kahachi Park belonged to Brian Laundry. I don't know why. The fact that it's this really difficult to pronounce park that he's in, it's just, I find that funny. It's a terrible, tragic story. Two people have lost their lives, and I can't help but laugh. About the name of the park, that's often my response to death, I've found, is to laugh. And this is not unusual. It's been covered in media, and I think my wife watched Grey's Anatomy the entire fucking 57 seasons or whatever. And I think there's one of the characters who like laughs when people dies. Um, and like going back all the way, I guess I didn't laugh. I'm trying to. The first time I think I was confronted with death, and I took a creative nonfiction writing course in college, and I wrote this essay about my experiences with death, um, and how my first time that I can remember at least was with my grandma, and my mom came in, and it was like late at night, and my brothers and I, we all shared a room, and she kind of, gathered us all around. We were kind of in this huddle on one of our beds, and she told us, that my grandma Jean had died, my dad's mom, and who we were never really that close to begin with. I do have fond memories of going to her house, and she would always have these little animal cookies that were delicious. Which nowadays, everything tastes bad to me nowadays. I don't know if it's because they got rid of all like the really bad fats and stuff, and all the crap that I was eating in the late '80s, early '90s. But those animal cookies don't taste the same to me anymore. Or maybe it's just taste change. But when she told us, my brother started crying, and I just kind of sat there like, okay. Now, granted, I think I was like 3 or 4 at the time, so who expects a child to really understand what's going on? But it was a pattern that continued throughout my life. Which interestingly, it's death is not something I've really had to deal with all that much. Um, I guess I'm trying to think what would interestingly, the very first funeral I actually went to, I was like 1 week old or something like that. It was my great aunt something or other, and she died like right after I was born. So I brought death into the world with me. That's why I laugh in its face. Mwahaha. Um, but it's not always true. Either death or the thought of death is something that has affected me, and when I'm laughing, it's not that it's not affecting me negatively. That's just my kind of response to it. Um, and it's not that I'm laughing in the face of death. I'm not that arrogant. But I think when my dog died was probably the most emotional I've been. Um, at least for a long time before my grandma died. My other grandma, my mom's mom, because her and I, she lived in the town where I went to college, and it's a city where my parents grew up. Uh, and so her and I ended up spending a lot of time together when I was in college, and I would go over there and eat dinner every Friday night. I would bring her. We would eat a lot of stuff, but it was a lot of Taco Bell. She loved Taco Bell, which I don't know, is something that I find so adorable about her. But she was an alcoholic earlier in her life and had all kinds of health issues and had a colonoscopy bag. So eating Taco Bell was not always the smartest option for her, but she just kept doing it anyways. And she was always so interested in what I was doing, even though she didn't understand a lot of the stuff that I would talk about. And she would share these amazing stories about the depression um and stuff. So when she died, it was I was sad, but at the same time, she was old, and she had been really sick for a long time. So I don't think it has the same impact in that kind of context. It obviously did for my mom. My mom, I don't think has gotten over it yet, which is interesting to me because her parents were very abusive. My grandma, she did not have the greatest childhood growing up, so it's interesting. But I don't know, she was still very close to her till the very end. Um, So, but yeah, my dog probably. I had a couple of friends die in high school. Friends who weren't that close, but friends who died in drunk driving accidents. Um, but again, did not have a strong reaction to it. So I don't know. Um, I think I think and I think I've told this story about my son. He got out of the house when he was like a year and a half old, and I thought for sure he was dead. That's probably the moment in my life where like that thought of death really I don't know, it's that kind of out of body experience almost. Like I was there, and everything was moving, but it was weird. Uh, so I don't know, but Maya Kahachi Park, huh? And he is I'm guessing it's suicide. Um, possible. I guess it could have been revenge or something, but most likely suicide. Attorneys admit making explosives thrown at NYPD vehicle in New York City Floyd protests. What the fuck? Well, that sounds interesting. No autoplay videos. 2 attorneys arrested for allegedly throwing Molotov cocktails at NYPD vehicle. Oh, interesting. So they were just partaking in the protests? Yeah, interesting. I mean, I do think that people who make it to that level are probably more likely to be radical in their views. I mean, I'm not saying supporting the George Floyd protest is radical. That's totally, yeah, go for it. I'm there with you. But throwing Molotov cocktails, that's a little radical, right? But maybe not. I don't know. I do think extremism correlates with being uneducated. So I don't know. But it does seem odd to me to throw away that, you're a freaking lawyer, like an NYU law graduate. That's interesting. Riverside teacher placed on leave after mimicking Native Americans during math class. Honestly, I don't think I do a good job of filtering myself. There are probably some things I've said in the classroom that I've done in the classroom that would probably not get me in trouble with any reasonable person, but would certainly get me in trouble with the more conservative elements in my city. And I could end up on Fox News kind of thing. Interestingly, my advisor, my mentor, he ended up on Fox News because of his support of critical race theory. And not only his support, he's one of the biggest proponents of critical race theory. And in relation to writing and how we evaluate writing. So I could totally see myself, and I always wonder if there's students recording me and stuff like that. Again, I don't think I would really offend anybody but white supremacists. So I'm not that worried about it. At the same time, I am a little worried just because of where I live and where I teach. My dad has talked about this before though, and I guess it's basically the cancel culture argument. And I think this was in response to, it was some basketball team owner who was caught in a recording using the N-word, and as a result got a lot of media coverage, a lot of outrage, and I believe he sold it or was asked to step down or whatever. I'm not entirely sure about that, but he got in trouble for it basically. And my dad at the time was which is an interesting incident to base his argument off of. I don't think my dad is going around using the N-word. He, I think, was blind in a lot of ways to a lot of issues of race, and has always kind of condemned what he calls identity politics and sees it as divisive. But I think he's opened his mind a bit more to that, especially after he's had a couple of guests on his podcast that I think have changed his ways of thinking about it. He still sees, again, what he calls identity politics as being dangerous, and it's like I have to remind him, like, Dad, it's white people that invented identity politics. It's not anything new. So, which is maybe an argument why we should get rid of it, right? But anyways, I don't think it's something you can really avoid. Like, identity isn't something you can just erase, right? I mean, you can try to. We can certainly try to erase certain people's identities. That's what they've been trying to do. But what am I talking about now? I've totally lost my train of thought. So I guess he's just saying that with technology and the kind of breakdown in our ideas about privacy and stuff, he thinks that we're in really dangerous territory. And he just says that if if this kind of stuff existed 20 years ago, 30 years ago, he would have probably been fired. And I agree, he would have been. And then this school district would have lost one of the best teachers they've ever had. And I'm not just saying that as his son. He's received numerous awards and um, competed at the national level with his academic team and stuff. So, um, and he would have been fired because he's very controversial and very aggressive and very loud in his teaching style. Um, and he's actually he does a really good job of basically he's gonna push back on you no matter what your argument is, kind of thing. So students never really got a good read on his politics because, again, in our city, it's a little dangerous, I think, to make those things too well known, and we're constantly reminded to like be objective um and stuff. At the same time, we're assured of our First Amendment rights. So, but I don't know, he just sees it as problematic, particularly within the context of teaching and education. Um, I think in terms of how this can lead to silencing of teachers. And I think that what he was talking about years ago, again, the example he was using with this basketball team owner, probably not the best example. Um, but I think it's maybe stuff that we are seeing with, like in Texas. On the other hand, like, should this teacher, who's maybe mocking Native Americans, um, be allowed to remain in their position with that kind of influence over children, some of whom may be Native American, and even if they're not, it doesn't matter, right? Because we want to be teaching tolerance to all people, and not just being nice to the racial groups when they're in the room, you know. um, Pfizer says COVID-19 vaccine more than 90% effective in kids. Very nice. I can't wait until it's available. I really hope that the numbers of parents who want to get their children vaccinated has increased. And if not, then can we like arrest them for child abuse or child neglect or something? Maybe, please. Just kidding. Kind of. I don't know. Do something to them. Sneak in and vaccinate their children. In corporate crackdown, US SEC takes aim at executive pay. The SEC has been making some little tiny waves with some changes that they're suggesting. I kind of want to see what this has to do with executive pay. It says the new Democratic leadership of the U.S. Securities Watchdog has a message for corporate America's highly paid executives. If your company screws up, your pay is at risk. Okay, well that sounds great because some of the things that we've seen are basically like intentionally tanking companies and then collecting these huge payouts and stuff. These golden parachute packages. And so I think there does need to be more accountability, not only in terms of money, but I think also criminal accountability. When it comes to those who are in charge of companies and the actions that a company takes. And yet it's like they're moving in the opposite direction. This isn't on the screen right now, but I heard it on NPR yesterday about the Johnson and Johnson, the talc powder, the baby powder lawsuits, right? With like over 38,000 women who have ovarian cancer as a result of the baby powder and all of these lawsuits. Now, I don't know if every single case has been proven or not. I don't know how that works exactly. But so what Johnson and Johnson has done, which Johnson and Johnson is one of the largest companies in the world, worth about $500 billion. they are going to be filing bankruptcy in order to avoid the liabilities. Now, Johnson & Johnson isn't actually going to be filing for bankruptcy because, again, they're one of the wealthiest companies in the world. But what they did is they created basically a phantom company in Texas, because Texas has this thing that allows them, this little loophole that allows them to do this. And then they shifted all of their liabilities to this company. So now when these women are suing, they're not suing Johnson & Johnson, they're suing this Texas company that is bankrupt. That was basically created to be bankrupt so that they could abuse bankruptcy laws. When you have stuff like that going on, now granted, this is going to be litigated in court, and this move may be struck down, and they may not be allowed to do it. We'll see. Given history, they will probably get away with it just fine. But another piece of news related to, cracking down on maybe corruption and government officials abusing relationships with corporate America, or corporate America doing terrible things, is this story, which says Fed to ban policymakers from owning individual stocks, restrict trading following controversy. I think we just need to restrict all public officials from trading in stocks. You can do a blind trust or a blind thing or whatever, although even that is can be abused pretty easily. So maybe we just pay them more. Or we look for people who are really interested in just doing the job and not after a paycheck. Which I know, I don't know. There are some labor activists that I've met in my years who have really hated me for my stance on that. They think it devalues labor. I don't know. I just want to teach, and I want to do a good job for my students. So if that means that I'm working 40 hours but only getting paid for 20, then oh well. I don't care. I'm going to make sure that my students get the best that I can give them. Yet I've been kind of attacked for that. Just saying, like, when I do that, it basically makes everybody else's job harder, and the valuing of our labor decreases, basically. I don't know. But both of those pieces of news sound fantastic. So maybe we are headed in the right direction after all. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's first voter fraud bounty goes to a Pennsylvania Democrat. He did ask for, like, proof of voter fraud, right? Did he actually pay it out? I don't actually want to click on that link. House votes to hold Trump ally Steve Bannon in contempt. That's probably the big story of this week, is Congress finally choosing to exercise their authority that is granted to them in the Constitution. Now, granted, I think that this whole scenario just speaks to how everything is fundamentally broken, because the only way this is the only reason this didn't happen 2 years ago is because they didn't have a Democrat in the White House. But if the only way that you can exercise oversight of the executive branch is to be in charge of the executive branch, then something is broken. And even now, people are acting like this is something like, ooh, oh my gosh, Congress is trying to investigate abuses by the executive. How dare they? I wish you guys could see my face right now, because just the look of just sheer, like, what the fuck that I'm trying to communicate with my facial expressions. I don't know, man. This place is crazy. There's also I was just thinking about this, how like, okay, every single story is about how Democrats can't get this bill passed, but it's like, wait, the reason they can't get it passed is because Republicans are terrorists. So shouldn't we be talking about that? But no, instead we're going to talk about how the Democrats can't get this passed. Totally ignoring why they can't get it passed, which is the Republican terrorists. Just they can't get it passed. Of course, they blame it on the Democrats, despite the fact that it's the terrorists, the Republicans, that are responsible for this. And actually, the Republicans are negotiating this. They got Manchin, right? I don't know why. I don't think I forget his name. This is Robert Durst, charged with 1982 murder of wife Kathy Durst. And I know this is it's like a celebrity murder case or something. Not something that I pay much attention to. At least I think that's what it is. But for some reason, every time I read this, I think of, is his name Fred Durst? I think he was the lead singer of Limp Bizkit. But that's what I think of, and I'm like, whoa. He murdered his wife, and he had a wife in 1982. Wasn't he like 5 at the time? Okay, I'm clearly starting to go a little loopy here. So it's probably about time that I ended the episode. Plus, it's Friday. I'm ready to head into the weekend. I'm gonna go bake some cake, I think, because I'm in the mood for cake. Anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for me for today. Thanks for watching or listening. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you another day.